First off, you have to go take the reports that come in that are available to the general public. Researchers, this is how most of them start. They read it. Oh, here's something close to me. Let's see how many reports from this area. You see a kind of a pattern over the years develop. Okay, this might be a good place for me to, if I'm interested in this, and I'm going to get out there and look. You go out there and you look maybe for 2 or 3 years, you don't see anything. Well, I gave it my shot. I don't really believe in them. Never seen them. Don't see any sign of them. Well, you don't see sign of them unless you look for it. He told me this story. During deer season every year in northwest Louisiana, where his father-in-law would lease the area where they were doing Bigfoot research out to deer hunters. And the story he told me was these people had been told there were monkeys out there. And this one gentleman that had purchased a lease and the right to hunt there didn't believe it. So he was out there one morning before dawn and was crawling through some brambles and brush, kind of like the way you described it, I envision it as a bunch of overgrowth that was so thick that you really and truly had to crawl through, push your gun ahead of you, and crawl until you got to where you were going or got through it. And he didn't have a light with him, or he didn't have it on, or something along that line. But as he was crawling through this undergrowth, he realized something was crawling towards him. Being Louisiana, it could have been a bear. It could have been anything, and the guy was, well, I've got my hunting gun, but I want to see what it is. I'm not just going to shoot. He said he reached in and took his flashlight, turned it on, and there was a squatch staring him in the face. He was on his board. They were meeting each other. One was trying to go hunt deer, the other one was coming out. And the colleague of ours that told me the story said the deer hunter just come straight up out of the bramble and just tore an opening back the way he was coming. And that he didn't ask for his money back. He never asked to hunt there again. And that would have been a terrifying ordeal. I've thought about it. It's funny when I think about the story, the stories I've heard, some of the stories that I've actually been involved in. It's funny to listen to.
Right.
But knowing what's happened to us in southeast Oklahoma,
right,
I think I wouldn't be terrified too if I'd come face to face in a undergrowth tunnel with a squatch coming one way towards me and me trying to go the other way to hunt deer. I would have busted up and probably walked on air. But it's one of my favorite stories. It's one that he recounted, and I have to believe it has some basis of truth to it.
Yeah.
Because I have seen the country, and I believe they did some clear cutting on it a couple of years ago, but when I saw it, it was still pretty thick.
I've heard there's 3 types of squatch. Tell us something about that.
Well, I can tell you what I know from personal experience, and I can tell you I have a friend and colleague over in Oklahoma Oklahoma, that's what he's told me. There may be more than 3. There may be subspecies to a subspecies to a subspecies. You know how it is. Every year they find a new subspecies, chimp or some kind of primate, or even bugs. You know, so we know that in the early days of Bigfoot / Sasquatch research, people would see these creatures cross the road, or they'd be out hunting and they'd encounter one, and they had the means to possibly kill one. But they would always say, well, I could have killed it, but I didn't, because I got to thinking it looked too much like a man to kill. So type 1 is your ape man, or your man-like Sasquatch. And these are the ones that I believe, perhaps from what I could see in the Roger Patterson, Bob Gimlin film, that the subject they call Patty probably isn't a human appearing Sasquatch.
The ones they call the Pacific Northwest, man.
The PNW type, yeah. Then my personal encounter in southeast Oklahoma in 1971, and subsequent encounters in northeast Texas and again in southeast Oklahoma and points in between, I've encountered 90% of my encounters have not looked human. They look like overgrown gorillas that have a little bit better posture than what we consider as a gorilla. They walk upright. They can drop to all fours, move on their knuckles, be knuckle walkers, or putting their palms down and walk. I've seen and heard all of this. I know they're extremely fast, much faster than a gorilla, but they do appear to be gorilla-like. And these are the ones that when I write and I talk about that I've been close enough to look into their eyes and that I see no humanity there.
Ones we call the Southern Bigfoot.
Right. Of course, that's just us.
As a general rule.
As a general rule, we call it a Southern Bigfoot or a Southern Sasquatch, and but that doesn't mean that in the Pacific Northwest or the Midwest or in Canada, New England.
Just a term to differentiate
Right.
between the groups.
That we have these two different groups everywhere. Here in the South, we're even going to have some that look human-like. But then the third one is a monster.
One
Literally.
they're referred to as Dogman.
Right. Dogman, Wendigo, werewolf. Things like that. I've encountered one here in northeast Texas, and believe me, I really hope I never have to see another one. I felt very fortunate to walk away from it. I have a colleague over in southeast Oklahoma in the Comanches, and I'm not going to give his name because I think that would probably be maybe an embarrassment to him if it ever got out that, oh, David Holley went around telling a story that I told him once. But I do know he's a well-respected researcher. I mean, I like him a lot. And I have never caught him in a fraudulent tale. And he has told me that he had a picture that he took one time of the three types together. The human appearing Pacific Northwest type that looks much like Patty. What I consider the ape-like Squatch, and the dog man, or the monster, and that they were all in a clearing together, and that the human appearing Sasquatch, the PNW type, and the southern Sasquatch, my ape type, were both on their feet. They were standing bipedally, and then this monster, this dog man, was on its knees or its haunches, perhaps, and it was still as tall as the other two and more massive. There are three, and we don't know what the third one really is. Now, when somebody says yes, they're monsters, I've seen them, I'm inclined to agree. What I saw was a monster. What I saw, no humanity at all. I mean, if I'd been in a horror movie, it would have been a werewolf, without the pointy ears, but it did have the snout. To tell you the truth, I didn't even look at the ears when I had my encounter with one. I just was trying to get away from it. Person with me, standing at my truck, was shouting that I had another something trying to get around behind me and cut me off from the truck. And my only companion was a little abandoned Australian Shepherd that kept between me and this creature that had dropped on all four and was stalking me through the high grass and the brambles. Yeah, there's three.
And everything you hear about that may not fit exactly in the categories are probably something in the middle.
Yeah, when I hear the stories about the short squatty squatch, they're talking about juveniles. Got to be. But of course, just as there is dwarfism in humans, maybe, and someday maybe we'll find out. Maybe there's something like that in the Squatch line. Maybe occasionally there is a genetic throwback and they're dwarfs. But they're still going to be as strong as a gorilla or even a chimpanzee, and we know that they're much, much stronger than humans.
Yes, chimpanzee is as strong as a human, if not more so.
More so. There's one thing that I've tried to do, and Timberline Bigfoot Group goes out. I have said this to many members. I'm going to say it again. I'll say it on camera. It's not my job to convince the American public or anybody else that these creatures exist. That's not my job. I report what I see. I report the experiences that I've had. I report what others have told me. You believe it or you don't believe it. If you don't believe it, and you say, well, hey, Dave, you're full of, human waste. That's fine. I'm not going to say, well, kiss my behind, because I'm just going to say, well, you just have to see what I see, hear what I hear, and the best way to do that is just go with me.